dream state of samadhi. Okay. So we have to read it. Yeah, we have to read it. So one of you has to Archana, they can read, and Jasmine also can
Do you
read.
want me to read?
You have the text?
Yes. Only
Go ahead.
life divine I don't have.
Acha, okay. So go ahead, read the greatest value of the dream state. After that, Archana will read.
The greatest value of the dream state of samadhi lies, however, not in these more outward things, but in its power to open up easily higher ranges and powers of thought, emotion, will, by which the soul grows in height, range, and self-mastery, especially withdrawing from the distractions of sensible things. It can, in a perfect power of concentrated self-seclusion, prepare itself by a free reasoning, thought, discrimination, or more intimately, more finally, by an even deeper vision and identification for access to the divine, the supreme self, the transcendent truth, both in its principle and powers and manifestations, and in its highest original being. Or it can by an absorbed inner joy and emotion, as in a sealed and secluded chamber of the soul, prepare itself for the delight of union with the divine beloved, the master of all bliss, rapture, and ananda.
Okay. Let's see and identify the words, because that's our main exercise, so that we know what he's talking about. The greatest value of the dream state of samadhi. So Sremba is telling you very clearly, he's talking about the dream state. And the dream state is the intraconscient. Keep that very clearly in your mind. The dream state is not the level 2 of the spiritual planes of consciousness. Okay? That is the super mental, if you want, above the mental state. The greatest value of the dream state of samadhi, and when you are in samadhi, you don't necessarily get liberation. Liberation you get when you go up, but here you are going into yourself. Dream state of samadhi lies, however, not in these more outward things. The outward things he has already told you what they are. Clairvoyance, clairaudience, and all these powers. So they are not so important. They are important because they do show that you have grown in consciousness. But the real thing, what Srila is saying is, but in its power to open up easily higher ranges and powers of thought, emotion, will. So you can get more powerful, the capacity of more powerful thoughts also comes into you. Okay? In other words, the mental being of man, the amount of knowledge that it can get, okay, it gets much more when it goes into the intraconscious. We have already seen that. The inner mind is 10 times more powerful than the outer mind. So that's what he's saying. But it's not only mind, it's also emotion. So emotion sometimes, when you see a scene which should actually give you emotion, you see that you are not capable of emotion. You see sometimes that you are not. So, but in the inner heart, okay, the inner vital, you can get more, you're open more to emotion. And also not only thought and emotion, but also will. Because in the interconscient, you are nearer to the psychic being, so will also grows. Okay? So that means power. So capacity of thought, capacity of emotion, and capacity of power also increases on yourself. By which, and what can this soul do? By which the soul grows in height. Okay? In fact, from the interconscious, it can go into the level 2 of the supermental planes of consciousness. Level 2, it can go into higher ranges and powers of by which the soul grows in height, range, and self-mastery. So Surendra is always insisting on perfection being upwards and also horizontally. So range, when he's saying, is horizontal. You come to know things at your level only, not at the higher level, but much more than what you would normally have understood. So height, range, and self-mastery. So to give you an idea of the range, okay, just an idea. If I am in the normal consciousness, I am limited to my room and I don't even know what's happening in Golconda. Okay, but if I am in the intraconscious, I can understand what's happening elsewhere, not only in Golconda, but even in the ashram, even in America. Okay, that happens. There are people who can see. The distance is not a problem then. So that is range, horizontal. Okay, and self-mastery. And what is self-mastery? Self-mastery means your capacity to do exactly what you want to do. That capacity we don't have in our normal consciousness. I want to do something, but I find that I don't have will. Okay, I want to do something, but I can't. So but here in the interconscious, your self-mastery grows. But remember, it's never complete. Even in the spiritual planes of consciousness, self-mastery is not complete. It becomes complete only at the highest level. Level 3, it becomes complete. Especially, Shilpa, what happened? I thought you said that you can't.
Yes, because today I'm expecting some guests for the breakfast, but they have not yet come, so I thought of joining.
Good. Taking advantage. Okay.
Yeah. Good morning.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what he's saying. Increase in height, okay, and increase also in range, that means horizontally and self-mastery. Your control over your own body, mind, life also increases. Especially withdrawing from the distraction of sensible things. What are the sensible things? Sensible means open to the senses. That means the physical world. So the physical world distraction. It doesn't allow you to go inward and concentrate. The attractions of the physical world are very powerful. When some noise comes, loud noise, I will have to even stop doing lesson and look out of the window, what happened, what sort of accident happened. It's got a great attractive power, okay? Distraction power, the physical things in the world. Okay? Distraction of sensible things, material things. The things are not material, but things are material, but they are having an impact on you through your senses, sensible things. The word sensible also has got another meaning, psychological meaning. But here it is not that. It is open to senses, physically. It can, in a perfect power of concentrated self-seclusion, it can also self-seclusion. You are not going outwards. You get rid of the distraction of the physical thing and go into yourself, concentrate. That's it, samadhi that he's talking about. Concentrated self-seclusion. You seclude yourself from the physical world. Prepare itself by free reasoning or discrimination, and more intimately, more finally, by an ever-deepening vision and identification. So he's talking of free reasoning, he's talking of discrimination, and he's talking also of deeper vision and identification. In other words, we are going nearer and nearer to the powers in the supermental world. Remember, the powers of the supermind are 4. Vision, which is talking about vision, drishti. Then shruti, hearing certain things and guidance from the divine. Okay? That is shruti, that's inspiration. Then there is discrimination. You understand and discriminate between two things. There's no confusion. Discrimination is 3rd. And intuition, discrimination is the 4th, sorry. And intuition is the 3rd. So these are the powers that you have. Intimately suggests, okay, intuition. You don't have to think, it comes automatically. So these are the powers that you can get. Even in samadhi, your being starts opening up to these powers. That's what he's saying. Okay? For access to the divine, you can get nearer and nearer to the divine. Even there's a gradation. The supreme self, the transcendent truth. And that's exactly what, when he uses these words, divine, supreme self, transcendent truth, meaning the supermental. But these powers in the supramental, these 4 powers that we spoke about just now, come down, and they are available also in level 2 and even in the intraconscious to a certain extent. Not fully, but to a certain extent. But it prepares you. So Samadhi has got this great value that it opens up large tracts of the unknown to you. That's what he said. Finally, by more ever deeper vision and identification, for access to the divine, the supreme self, the transcendent truth. These 3 words very clearly tell you that he's talking about the supermind, supreme self, the transcendent truth, both in its principles and powers and manifestations. So, principles, Sat, Chit, Shakti, Anand. And powers, when they come down, they acquire different principles. Okay? For instance, Chit is a principle, but when it comes down, it becomes consciousness, awareness. Consciousness becomes awareness at a lower level, that becomes a power. Okay? So, exactly also at the highest level, Shakti, but when it comes down, it becomes your will. So these are the powers that he's speaking about. For instance, Ananda is a principle, but when it comes down, it opens up your aesthetic capacities. That becomes a power. So, powers are the principles at a lower level. That's all. Okay, and manifestations, and in its highest original being. So, very clearly, highest original being, he's also talking about the Purushottama, the Ishvara, the 3rd level. So, it can open up to you. These things are becoming accessible, but that doesn't mean you can experience the highest at the lower levels, but they open up the capacity, the possibility of, or it can, by an absorbed inner joy and emotion, as in a sealed and secluded chamber of the soul, prepare itself for the delight of union with the divine beloved, the master of all bliss, rapture, and ananda. Now, he's using 3 words, bliss, rapture, and ananda. I think what he means is that ananda at the highest level, rapture when it comes down to the slightly lower levels, and bliss, even at the physical level, we can have a little bit of bliss. Okay? But happiness would probably be more apt at the lower level. Okay? So, we have happiness, but not always bliss. But if happiness is carried to an extreme limit, and pure happiness, not happiness of satisfaction of vital desires, that is also happiness, but that's not bliss. Bliss is without cause. When something very subtle, ananda comes in without cause, that would be bliss. So this is what he's saying. In other words, the whole para is saying that your capacity is increased tremendously. So he's giving full value to samadhi. Okay. Afterwards, he will tell you that these capacities can also be accessed in the waking consciousness. That's a waking samadhi. Here he's talking of the samadhi dream state, into the intraconscious, where you're not conscious of your outer world. Okay. So now, if Archana has got the text, she can read the next one.
Yes, my brother.
Yeah, go ahead.
For the integral yoga, this method of samadhi may seem to have the disadvantage that when it ceases, the thread is broken and the soul returns into the distraction and imperfection of the outward life, with only such an elevating effect upon that outer life as the general memory of these deeper experiences may produce. But this gulf, this break is not inevitable. In the first place, it is only in the untrained psychic being that the experiences of the trance are a blank to the waking mind. As it becomes the master of its samadhi, it is able to pass without any gulf of oblivion from the inner to the outer waking. Secondly, when this has been once done, what is attained in the inner state becomes easier to acquire by the waking consciousness, and to turn into the normal experience, powers, mental state, status of the waking life. The subtle mind, which is normally eclipsed by the insistence of the physical being, becomes powerful even in the waking state, until even there, the enlarging man is able to live in his several subtle bodies as well as in his physical body. So, to be aware of them and in them, to use their senses, faculties, powers, to dwell in possession of supraphysical truth, consciousness, and experience.
This is exactly what I said in the last sentence in the when we were studying the previous paragraph. So he's saying that samadhi, normally when you go deep into your intraconscious, you lose touch with the physical world. Okay, but that is not essential, and that is not the only way to have samadhi. You can have a waking samadhi. He is describing the waking samadhi here. You are fully aware of the physical world. You are even talking to people, but your consciousness has not come down to the physical level. Your consciousness is, at the same time, it is there in several places. I can't, if I am in samadhi and I can't talk to people unless I come down into my physical consciousness. So your part of your consciousness is in the physical world, but part of it is also in the subtle world. That's what's saying by the waking samadhi. We'll go through each sentence and see what we say. For the integral yoga, okay, the integral yoga should try for samadhi, which is a waking samadhi. That's what it means. For the integral yoga, this method of samadhi may seem to have the disadvantage that when it ceases, the thread is broken and the soul returns into the distraction and imperfection of the outward life. Okay? In other words, you come back to what you were, your old habits, your ways of thinking, your ways of emoting. Even if you have got all your defects, they also come up. But there's one big difference. You remember the experience of what you had. Okay? You remember. And that has a powerful effect on your body and your mind and your life. But it is still imperfect. That's what it's saying. It's still imperfect. So, but if you have a waking samadhi, the connection is not broken and it becomes easier to apply all the principles of a higher life which you have experienced in the interconscious in life. So even your outward life also changes. Okay? That's exactly what is meaning by if you go into earlier para I told you, na, if you go into your interconscious, power over yourself increases, then perfection is also possible, much more than if you are in the level 1 of your ignorance. So this is what he's saying. Only the general memory of these deeper experiences may produce. To a certain extent, they produce because of memory. But this gulf, the gulf between the physical consciousness and the interconscious, this gulf, this break is not inevitable. It's not that samadhi can be experienced only if you lose the physical consciousness. It's not true. But this gulf, this break is not inevitable. In the first place, it is only in the untrained psychic being. Okay? Now don't get confused. Very clearly, psychic word is used here in the sense of psychological, because the psychic does not need a training. It will train you. It doesn't need training itself. So here very clearly is the word psychic in the sense of psychological. Okay? Untrained psychological being, that the experience of the trance are a blank with a waking mind. As it becomes master of its samadhi, it is able to pass without any gulf of oblivion from the inner to the outer waking consciousness. Secondly, when this has been done, what is attained in the inner state becomes easier, not absolutely easy, but easier to acquire by the waking consciousness and to turn into the normal experience, powers, mental status of the waking life. So I'll give you an example, then you'll understand exactly what he's saying. Of course, Sridhar is speaking, when he spoke about what I'm going to tell you, is not in the intraconscious, but in the level 2. In Baroda, he made his mind silent and his consciousness rose into level 2. He had the experience of the self, the nirvana, the Brahman consciousness. But he found afterwards that it's very difficult to get that peace and liberation which he experienced up there down into the physical world. When he is talking to people, that peace is not so obvious. The defects of our lower nature continue to remain until by constant will and effort, he was able to do it after some time. Okay. So in the beginning, it's difficult. That's what he's saying. But in the waking samadhi, it becomes much easier to realize the powers that you have there in the higher plane or in the interconscious down into the physical plane. It becomes easier, but not easiest. That easiest becomes only at the third level. Superman. Remember that. So, secondly, when this has been done, what is attained in the inner state becomes easier to acquire by the waking consciousness and to turn into the normal experience, powers, mental status of the waking life. Your waking life also changes in proportion to what you experience in the higher planes. The subtle mind, which is normally eclipsed by the insistence of the physical being, becomes powerful even in the waking state. Until even there, the enlarging man is able to live in his several subtle bodies as well as in his physical body. To be aware of them and in them, not only aware, but you can live in your higher being, to use their senses, faculties, powers, to dwell in possession of supraphysical truth, consciousness, and experience. So I'll read that, the last sentence again. The subtle mind, so he's talking of the inner mind, not the outer mind. The subtle mind, which is normally eclipsed by the insistence of the physical being. Use the word, see the word eclipse. Okay? The eclipse occurs when the sun or the moon is there, it is present, but it is hidden. So exactly in the same, the word is so apt here, you can see. Okay, so your inner consciousness is always there, but it is hidden if you don't see it. So when the eclipse goes away, you become aware of your inner being. So the use of words is so interesting. Okay? So, the eclipse, the sun doesn't disappear, it is there, but it is covered up. Or the moon, it is covered up. Exactly in the same way, your subtle mind is always there, but it is covered up by the insistence of the physical being. Becomes powerful even in the waking state. So if you have a waking samadhi, it becomes very powerful. And the gulf is not there. There is a connection. So you can use those powers which you had in the higher stage, you can use them in the physical. Just give one example. Subtle mind is talking about. Mother could see people's thoughts. Okay. And Sremno could see also their condition. Okay. He can also see the future coming. The future events also he is seeing what they're coming, and he can even influence them. So they what he means. Becomes powerful even in the waking state. Until even there, the enlarging man is able to live in his several subtle bodies as well as in his physical body. So this is, we think of consciousness as something very fixed, and it can be, normally, it can be there only at one level. It is there in all the levels, but you are not conscious of it. Okay? Part of you is in the divine. Part of you is in the higher mind. Part of you is in the supermind even, but you are not conscious of it. Because what are you? You are really the cosmos. Okay? Remember, so everything is there in the cosmos, it is there in you. But you are not aware of that. If you go into the higher planes or into the interconscious, you become aware of these. So it's very interesting. So if you are there at that, and you can live on this several subtle bodies, Ramakrishna had a very interesting way of expressing it. He made a difference between Ishwar Koti and Jiva Koti. Jiva Koti is one who can live only on one level of consciousness, not necessarily the lowest. Even the ascetic, when he is achieved the Brahmic consciousness, his consciousness is not in the body-mind life. That mechanically goes on. Okay, so that's it. He's a Jiva Koti. But one who can live on several planes at the same time, that's what is a Ishwara Koti. He is capable of living at several levels at the same time. In other words, he is in the physical world, he is talking to people, he is doing everything, he is eating, sleeping, okay, talking to, instructing people, but his consciousness is at a higher level, and a minimum amount of consciousness is there at the physical level, so that the practical life can be possible. That's exactly what we said. Okay? So 8:25. We still have about 15 minutes. So we can see one more, we can read one more para. Okay? The sleep state ascends to a higher power of will. Now, sleep state very clearly is level 2, the spiritual planes of consciousness. Okay? The dream state is the intraconscious. So, Sunki, you are the fourth, so you can read.
Yes, I will read.
The sleep state.
The sleep state ascends to a higher power of being, beyond thought into pure consciousness, beyond emotion into pure bliss, beyond will to pure mastery. It is the gate of union with the supreme state of Satchidananda, out of which all the activities of the world are born. But here we must take care to avoid the pitfalls of symbolic language. The use of the words dream and sleep for this higher state is nothing but an image drawn from the experience of the normal physical mind with regard to planes in which it is not at home. It is not the truth that the self in the third status, called perfect sleep, susupti, is in a state of slumber. The sleep self is, on the contrary, described as prajna, the master of wisdom and knowledge, the self of the gnosis, and as Ishvara, the lord of being. To the physical mind, asleep, it is to our wider and subtler consciousness a greater waking. To the normal mind, all that exceeds its normal experience, but still comes into its scope, seems a dream. But at a point where it borders on things quite beyond its scope, it can no longer see truth, even as in a dream, but passes into the blank incomprehension and non-reception of slumber. This borderline varies with the power of the individual consciousness, with the degree and height of its enlightenment and awakening. The line may be pushed up higher and higher until it may pass even beyond the mind. Normally, indeed, the human mind cannot be awake, even with the inner waking of a trance on the supramental levels. But this disability can be overcome. Awake on these levels, the soul becomes a master of the ranges of Gnostic thought, Gnostic will, Gnostic delight, and if it can do this in samadhi, it can carry its memory of experience and its power of experience over into the waking state. Even on the yet higher level open to us, that of the Ananda, the awakened soul may become similarly possessed of the bliss self, both in its concentration and in its cosmic comprehension. But still there may be ranges from which it can bring back no memory except that which says, somehow, indescribably, I was in bliss. The bliss of an unconditioned existence beyond all potentiality of expression by thought or description by image or feature. Even the sense of being may disappear in an experience in which the word existence loses its sense, and the Buddhistic symbol of nirvana seems alone and sovereignly justified. However high the power of awakening goes, there seems to be a beyond in which the image of sleep or susupti will still find its application.
Okay, so now he is not talking of the intraconscious, but at the spiritual planes of consciousness, level 2, very clear. And that's why he has come to sleep state. Remember, the three waking state is our normal consciousness. Dream state is the intraconscious, and the sleep state is in the level 2, In other words, your consciousness is now gone out of your body-mind life. It is not subject to your body-mind life. It is outside and it is watching your own body-mind life. Okay? This is the sleep state. But there is another one, fourth one, deep, perfect, deep sleep. That is Sushupti. That's, and he's warning you not to get influenced by the words, because when you are in sleep state, you are actually spiritually much more awake than you were in the normal physical consciousness. And if you are in the deep sleep, Sushupti, you are the most conscious of all. You are absolutely awakened in consciousness. So don't get confused by the words. Okay? It confused me a lot in the beginning, because I couldn't understand how it can be so contradictory. It's just a nomenclature. It's just words. I can use the word tiger to mean a cat, but it becomes a convention. The words are only conventions. So when you say Sushupti, it refers to the consciousness which is not in sleep, which is in a awakened spiritual consciousness. So that's why he's warning you. Now we'll quickly go through. We have got just enough time, I think, to finish this para also. The sleep state, very clear, okay? Your consciousness is not in the body-mind life. The sleep state ascends to a higher power of being. So very clearly, he is telling you that the sleep state is superior to the intraconscious. Okay? Higher power of being. Beyond thought, into pure consciousness. Absolute only consciousness. Beyond emotion and pure bliss. If you remember, if you are in the Brahmic consciousness, no emotion touches you, no thought touches you, nothing, even the physical pains also don't touch you. You are absolutely at peace. So that's why I mean by beyond emotion into pure bliss. Beyond will into pure mastery. So, it is the will, we are using will at our level very ineffectively. Our will is sometimes works, sometimes doesn't work. But here in the spiritual planes of consciousness, it becomes much, 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 much better. Pure mastery. Okay. But not full mastery, but pure mastery. It is the gate of union with the supreme state of Satsang. Note, this level 2, spiritual planes of consciousness is only a gate. It is not yet the total identification. It is only the gate. Gate of union with the supreme state of Satchidananda. Supreme state of Satchidananda, level 3 if you want. Out of which all the activities of the world are born. So that's the origin. So that's why now he is giving you the explanation of the Sanskrit words. The use of the words dream and sleep for these higher states is nothing but an image drawn from the experience of the normal physical mind with regard to planes in which it is not at home. Okay? It is not the truth that the self in the third status called perfect sleep, Sushupti. See, he is also talking about third status. So level 1, level 2, level 3. Perfect sleep is in a state of slumber. It's not sleeping at all. The soul is absolutely awakened. Okay. So the third status called perfect sleep, Sushupti, is in a state of slumber. The sleep self, on the contrary, which is at level 2, okay, the sleep state on the contrary, described as prajna, wisdom, okay, the master of wisdom and knowledge, the self of the knowledge. By the way, the word prajna is pronounced as a saying that was taught to us by Jagannath Ji. He was a Vedalamka. He was a perfect Sanskrit scholar. He used to live in the press with us. So he has told us that you have to pronounce it prajna. We don't do that in the Indian languages. Prajna, we say. So prajna, the master of wisdom and knowledge, self of the gnosis, and as Ishvara. So very clearly he is talking about the gnosis and Ishvara, so level 3. And he also uses the word third status. So you can, these are all hints as to what we speak of the levels. Level 1, level 2, level 3. Okay. He is using the word third status, then he is relating it to Sushupti, and he is relating it to sleep, self on the contrary, Prajna, master of wisdom and knowledge. So, self of the gnosis, he uses the word gnosis and Ishvara. What could be clearer than this? And Lord of being. Lord also, when he says, it is a Purushottam that he's talking about. Okay? So, three levels. And the fourth one is beyond the manifestation. Okay? In this way of speaking. There are other ways of speaking. In fact, he will speak of the fifth one. Just now, Ananda plane, he will tell you. Okay? So, to the physical mind, a sleep, it is to our wider and subtler consciousness a greater awakening. To the physical mind, it's a sleep. But to the subtle consciousness, it's a greater awakening. You are spiritually much more awakened. To the normal mind, all that exceeds its normal experience, but still comes into its scope, seems a dream. But at the point where it borders on things quite beyond its scope, it can no longer see truth even as in a dream, but passes into a blank incomprehension and non-reception of slumber. This is at the highest level. Okay. There you have lost contact with the physical world. The fourth, unmanifest. This borderline varies with the power of the individual consciousness. That's a very interesting sentence. Don't think that these are all geographically fixed lines. They are not. Okay? It depends on the individual. With the degree and height of its enlightenment and awakening. How awakened is he? That depends on that. The line may be pushed up higher and higher until it may pass even beyond the mind. Okay? So from the sleep state, it can go into the third level, which is the deep sleep. In other words, level 2 can be pushed to level 3. That's what it's meaning. The line at level 2 can be pushed up to level 3. It goes beyond the mind. When he's using the word mind here, he's meaning the principle of mind. Okay. Normally, indeed, the human mind cannot be awake, even with the inner waking of trance. Normal human beings, even in the intraconscious, you are not awake, you are not aware of the physical world on the supramental levels. But this disability can be overcome. Awake on these levels, the soul becomes master of the ranges of Gnostic thought, Gnostic will, Gnostic delight. So, Gnostic thought, Superman. Gnostic will, Shakti. Gnostic delight, Anand. And if it can do this in Samadhi, it may carry its memory of experience and its power of experience over to the waking state. So, if you are nearing to level 3, it becomes possible to even change your body, change your vitality, and change your mentality. Even on the yet higher levels open to us, that of the Ananda, that's the next one. Then higher to here he is speaking about the Annamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, Anandamaya Kosha. So Anandamaya Kosha is the highest, okay, according to this classification. But just as I told you, it depends on the individual. Don't take these as absolute levels. Okay. They're all mixed, they run into each other. That of the Ananda. The awakened soul may become similarly possessed of the bliss self, both in its concentration and in its cosmic comprehension. So, in its concentration, the transcendent, and in the cosmic comprehension at the lower level in the cosmos. Okay, you can still have the Ananda experience, but still there may be ranges above from which it can bring back no memory. Okay? This is the unmanifest, can bring back no memory, except that which says, somehow, indescribably, I was in bliss. That's what you can see. The bliss of an unconditioned existence. Okay? Which is the conditioned existence? The physical world. Because there are conditions. What are the conditions? Material conditions, vital conditions, mental conditions. So unconditioned existence is the spiritual planes of consciousness and even higher up. Beyond all potentiality of expression by thought or description by image or feature. This is what we mean by featurelessness. Okay? There is no conditioning at all. Even the sense of being may disappear in an experience in which the word existence loses its sense, and the Buddhistic symbol of nirvana seems alone and sovereignly justified. So I'll just explain this sentence in 1 minute. When you are in a cosmic consciousness, you have identified yourself with the cosmos. But you are aware that you are identifying yourself with the cosmos. This you is not the ego. It's your real true individuality. But there's an experience where even that true individuality disappears. You become the infinite. There's nobody experiencing it now. It's not an experience of one individual having some experience. The individual also disappears. You become the infinite. The indeterminate infinite. That's what it means. And there, the Buddhist symbol of nirvana seems to be valid. However high the power of awakening goes, there seems to be a beyond in which the image of sleep, of Sushupti, will still find its application. So, Sushupti has warned you not to be interpreted wrongly, but there can be a state where really you become absolutely inward. Chit Ghana. There's no question of any memory or anything at all. You can't come back to give anything. This is what he said. Okay? So 8:41. So we've lost our time. Next we'll such is the principle of the yogic trance. So we have done 3 paras today because they're quite simple. Okay? He has given you the intraconscient, then the level of the the spiritual planes of consciousness level 2, and he has even given hint of level 3, and even the 4th one beyond that, the Ananda plane. So all these planes are there, and in trance it's possible to get access to them, depending on the individual, how much he has developed himself. Okay? So, au revoir everybody, have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you, Rangada.
Au revoir.